So I noticed that some of you guys are struggling with these types of problems, so I wanted to go ahead and make a quick video to see if this helps or not. So first and foremost, we want to go over the types of transformations we've gone over the last few days. Number one was rotation. The other day we learned about reflection. And today we learned about translation. So just a quick reminder, a rotation is when you're putting your pencil down and then rotating the image around a certain point. Reflection is basically taking an image and reflecting across a line, and translation is literally sliding an image up, down, left, or right. So with that said, let's take a look at our first example here. It says select all that are true about the transformation that takes triangle ABC to triangle A prime, B prime, C prime. Real quick, let's go over the different options that we have that they have listed, because it's important because they did ask us to select all that are true. There might be more than one. So here they're giving us an option to say that there's a 90-degree counterclockwise rotation around the origin, a reflection across the x-axis, a dilation, which is the center of dilation of the origin. Where do they want it? Now I will say this, we haven't talked about dilations yet, so there's a good chance that's not even going to be an option for us. Hint, hint. Next one, 180 degrees clockwise rotation around the origin. Translation, so it looks here like if it is a translation, we're going to have to provide the coordinate rule. They're asking for that. Could it be a reflection across somewhere that's other than the x or y axis? Okay, we haven't gone over that, so we're probably not going to use that option either. Is it a reflection off of the y-axis? Is it a 270 degrees clockwise rotation around the origin? Is it a 180 counterclockwise rotation around the origin? Is it a 90-degree clockwise rotation around the origin? Or is it a 270 counterclockwise rotation around the origin? So sorry, we've cut that off. That's a coordinate rule. So with that said, again, our options are it could be a rotation, reflection, or translation. I'm going to first start with, could it be a rotation, because that's what I learned first. So I'm going to go ahead and use a piece of patty paper. I'm going to go ahead and trace my first triangle. Notice we have A, B, C, A prime, B prime, C prime. So I am going to start with tracing triangle ABC. By doing that, I now can go ahead and experiment to see if this could be a rotation. If you remember, what you want to do first is start with a reference line to see how far I can rotate it. I'm going to go ahead and put my pencil here and try rotating it to see if I can match this triangle onto the other triangle underneath. Now you're going to notice things aren't going to line up nicely, no matter how I shift it around. So guess what that means? It's not a rotation. Okay, so I already went through a rotation, so my next guess would be, could it be a reflection? Okay, so let's try that. By the looks of this, if it's a reflection, it would look like it would be reflected off of the x-axis, because it looks as though this is reflecting onto here. But let me check that. So once again, I'm going to go ahead and place it back here. But because I want to check a reflection across the x-axis, what I'm going to do differently is draw my reference line pointing in one of the directions towards the x-axis, which either could be towards the east or towards the west. So I'm going to go ahead and reflect, making sure that this continues to point to the east. So I'm going to go ahead and flip it this direction. Notice my arrow is still pointing to the east, which is a good sign. And you're going to notice that this triangle matches up perfectly. So for that reason, I'm definitely going to go with a reflection. But what type of reflection? Well, I would say it's going across this axis here. So here, notice this is a reflection, but it's specifically asking one that's not across the x or y axis. So you will not select that option. What will you select? Well, it is a reflection and it's off the x-axis. So I would go ahead and click this option. Now, were there any other things regarding reflections? This is my only other option. Is it a reflection off of the y-axis? No. So it seems as though this is my only answer. Okay, so now let's take a look at another example. Here is another one. So the instructions are exactly the same. My options are exactly the same. It says here, select all that are true about the transformation that takes triangle ABC to triangle A prime, B prime, C prime. So once again, what I want to do is I want to look at my three options as of right now. I can go down the list, or I can simply take a look at what it looks like it could be. But for the sake of this, I am going to go ahead and go down the list. So first I'm going to check, is it a rotation? Okay, I'm going to use a brand new piece of paper, patty paper, so that I don't confuse you. I'm going to go ahead and copy triangle ABC, not A prime, B prime, C prime. So I'm going to first check to see if this could be a rotation. So I went ahead and labeled my points and drawn in my triangle. Remember, with rotations, it's a good idea to have a reference line. It really doesn't matter which direction you draw it, but just choose one. So my center of rotation is going to be at the origin. That's all we've learned so far. So I'm going to go ahead and try to rotate this triangle onto here and see if it matches up. So you're going to find that it actually does line up very well. So notice, let's go back real quick, how far did I have to rotate? Well, looking at this line here, I am rotating it right now counterclockwise. You're going to see this ticker is going the opposite direction of how a clock ticks. And I only had to move it once to the other side. So for that reason, I would claim that this is a 90-degree counterclockwise. So I'm going to look at my list of rotations. Here's one. That is not clockwise, so I'm not going to click that option. Here's 180. That's not correct for a rotation. It's not a 270 clockwise. Is it? Well, we're claiming it's 90 degrees counterclockwise. So what is the other option? The other option would also include a 270 degrees clockwise. And notice with rotations, there's always two types. So let me verify for you. So once again, I'm going to show you real quick that this was a 90 degrees counterclockwise. But it could also be, I'm claiming that it could also be a 270 degrees clockwise rotation. So with my center of rotation here, we're going 90, we're going 180, and then we are going 270 degrees. You're going to see that both rotations match up. So with rotations, I'm just going to go ahead and select both options and submit. I will say that it sometimes asks you, are you sure you left some blank? Are you sure you want to submit? You'll just have to click yes. Okay. Okay, last example for this. Now we have one that looks like this. Once again, let's take a look at our list. We can say it's a rotation, we can say it's a reflection, or we can say it's a translation. I'm going to go down the list and check for a rotation. So again, I'm going to use a fresh new patty paper so I don't confuse you. I'm going to first start with copying my first triangle, the one without the primes. Here's C, here's B, and here's A. To check to see if this is a rotation or not, I'm going to draw a reference line. In this case, I'm going to have it pointing west. I'm just trying to show you that it really doesn't matter which direction your reference line is as long as you have just one. So here, I'm going to check to see, is it possible for me to rotate this triangle here? Okay, notice, oh, that's not making things better. That's not making things any better. That's not getting closer. And last but not least, we end up back where we started. So I'm definitely going to say that it is not a rotation. So now I'm going to try a reflection. So with the reflection, I'm trying to imagine if I wanted to try to move this onto here, it's either reflecting off of the x-axis or the y-axis. Since we have a reference line already pointing towards the x-axis, let's see if we can check if it's a reflection off of the x-axis. Notice it's pointing to the west, so I'm going to make sure it's still pointing to the west after I flip it. So I am going to reflect it And you'll notice it's still pointing to the left. I know it looks like an M now, but it's still a reflection. So notice here, it didn't land where I wanted it to, so I'm not going to say it's a reflection off of the x-axis. Okay, so I'm going to retry. Now let's see if it could be a reflection off of the y-axis. So with the y-axis, I'm doing a reference line here, and when this is pointing south. So I'm going to make sure as I flip it over, it's still pointing south. So I'm going to go ahead and flip it this way. Notice my reference line is still pointing south. This is nowhere closer to being here, so I'm going to say it's not a reflection off of the x or y axis. So now I've definitely ruled out that it can't be a rotation, it can't be a reflection. There's a good chance it could be a translation, so let's check this one out. So going back to here, I want to see, is it possible for me to slide this over to the new one? And the answer is yes, it can. So this is considered a translation. So you'll notice the only option that I have in this list for translation happens to be right here. Translation. Notice there is an open box. What should I put in this open box? Well, it starts off with x, y, an arrow. So guess what? You're expected to write the coordinate rule. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick two corresponding points. In this case, I'm going to pick A and A prime. Notice I am going to start with A, and I'm going to move over to A prime. So first, we're going to describe what's happening to the x. So we're going to start with x here. We are moving, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 places to the left. Since it is the left, I'm going to put subtract 5. Then we're going to describe what's happening to the y. Well, from the y, it is moving up 1, 2, 3. Since it's going up, I am going to put plus 3. And that would be my answer. Why? Because the only other options would be reflection, reflection, rotation, reflection, rotation, 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 and rotation. So this is my only option. So I did look at to see what my other options are. Again, it's going to ask you, are you sure you want to submit? You just have to press OK, and it should be good. I hope this helps.